Hey there, how's it going? Sue here. Just thought it was about time. I wonder what was down here. It's my little metal thing off my shirt. Wonder what it was. It was cold. Thought it was about time that I did an update on what's happening with my carnivore diet. So if you've seen any of my earlier videos, you'll know that I started on a keto diet again, probably 4 months ago. Maybe 5 months, 4 or 5 months ago. I've played around with keto before and I decided to have a decent go at it. And so I started on there and I was dropping some weight, which was good. But as I was kind of digging more into information about keto, I kept coming across all of these doctors and different people talking about the carnivore diet, which I had heard about before, but kind of went here, So I started digging into more of that information, and long story short, I decided to try the carnivore diet. So I was eating mostly carnivore for about 2 months. So I did keto for about 2 months, dropped 4 kilos, I think, in those 2 months. Started on mostly carnivore, and weight loss stopped. But some other things started happening, changing, which was kind of interesting. So it's made me kind of stick with it. So, but initially, the reason for changing, I'll go back. Part of the reason for changing from keto to carnivore was because I was intrigued for a start. I was intrigued by the results that people were getting, not just with weight loss, but with health. And because as with a lot of people on keto, it's really tempting to just keep digging into all those treats, stuff that's sweetened with erythritol and made with almond flour and all sort of stuff. And I didn't really it's not good for your health, and that's me. If you give me an inch, I'll take a mile when it comes to food normally. And so if I can lose weight and be eating all of that stuff, even though it's homemade, I wasn't buying really keto stuff from the shop because that's even worse. But I make stuff, I make ice cream and bits and pieces with erythritol and made from almond flour and all sorts of stuff. And I already knew that I had a problem with oxalates, so I kind of had a rethink and decided to try carnivore. And so once I started on carnivore, really quickly a couple of things happened. So I stopped having nosebleeds, and nosebleeds have been something that I've been experiencing pretty much on probably a daily basis for quite a long time, like years. Not bad most of the time, but sometimes they don't want to stop, but most of the time not too bad. But they were seemingly getting worse. So they just stopped after a few, probably the first week. They just stopped happening. The other thing that stopped happening was dizzy spells. So I was having fairly regular dizzy spells. I'd had vertigo for years, but that had kind of gone, and then these dizzy spells came on, which was different. So my vertigo used to be when I was going from lying to sitting or standing most of the time, or the other way around. So that changed from horizontal to vertical or vice versa, and that had kind of always been mostly the pattern with my vertigo. But then that settled, and these dizzy spells started coming on that would just hit me, and it wouldn't be anything to do with position or what I was doing. They would just come on and kind of it was a different feeling, like I was kind of going to pass out or something. So they stopped as well. I had one the first week I was on carnivore, and I was working on a client, and then he was quite concerned about me, but then they just stopped, and I've had no dizzy spells in nearly 3 months. So that was enough, like right from that first week, that was enough to kind of get me going, okay, so what's going on here and what else is going to change? The other things that started to change was the keratoses, whatever you pronounce them, on the backs of my hands have just about gone away. So they started to diminish fairly quickly as well. I had quite a big one on this hand here that was probably had come to about sort of that size because I kept picking at it, and it started to shrink, and they've just about gone. There's you can feel a couple of little tiny rough patches here and there, but nothing too major. So they changed. Inflammation in my gums. I have gum disease and receding gums, which I'm hoping that this will change, and I have a feeling that it will. So my the pain in my gums and my teeth started to settle down. It still flares up every now and then, which I think is to do with oxalate dumping. And I suspect that oxalate's probably been playing quite a big part in what's going on in my mouth. So that started to it's just noticeable that there's a change. What else? They were the early ones. Now, the last 2 weeks. So what happened was I started following like quite a few of the carnivore channels on YouTube. One of them is Bella, the steak and butter gal, and she was doing an interview with I can't remember who it was. It might have been Sean Baker. I'm not really sure, but they were talking about. No, it must have been someone else. But she was talking about this 90-day carnivore challenge for weight loss, basically. It's to health as well, but it's to kind of speed up the weight loss side of things with carnivore, and to get better results than you otherwise would. So I liked the sound of that, so I jumped on and so I've been doing their program now for 2 weeks. So the first 2 weeks is priming. And so this is a feasting and fasting program, which makes total sense to me because you start off priming, which is eating 3 meals a day plus snacks, all animal products, lots of fat, lots of fatty meat, and it's about getting your hormones working correctly. And ghrelin and leptin, the hormones that affect that are your hunger signals, and learning what your hunger signals feel like, and getting yourself to a point where your body knows that it's not starving, and so when you start fasting, then it responds in a different way. So I am on my last day of the 2 weeks priming, and some people prime for a lot longer, some people prime for months, just depending, especially if they've been on vegan diets, because their bodies are just so starved of nutrients that once they start eating carnivore, they just can't get enough food into themselves. And that's kind of what I noticed at the beginning when I went carnivore, because I had been fasting, intermittent fasting, for about 18 months, 2 years, kind of off and on, but more on over the last 12 months. And so that's how, like, I dropped about 12 kilos or so doing that. And I could do it fairly easily. I could go all day with no food, work with clients until 7 o'clock at night, and then eat tea, and I'd be fine. But when I started eating carnivore, I just got really hungry, and I didn't know why. I was just like, oh my God, I can't fast. I'm hungry. So I was still not eating breakfast most of the time, but I was just kind of white knuckling it through until later in the day. But I was eating twice a day, sometimes a bit more than that, sometimes breakfast, and the weekends and that. But I didn't know why I was hungry. And this is why, is because when you've been depriving your body of food, and nutrition is the depriving of the nutrition, the nutrients that's in the fats is the thing, and your body slows down, your metabolism slows down, and when you start eating carnivore, your cells just want more. They want more until they get to the point where they are satiated and they have enough for things to settle down. And so I feel like I'm there with the 2 weeks priming. After the first week, I was just like sick. I had diarrhea. I was just like, oh my God, I can't keep doing this. I've had enough food. But then I did one day where I only did 2 meals on last Tuesday, I think it was. I was just miserable, and everything kind of came right. I slowed down on the cooked fats, which is part of the problem too. If your body's not used to the fats, it can certainly trigger the old bowel to work overtime, and that can make life a little bit of a challenge when you got to work. So that all settled down, and so this last week has been since last Tuesday has been quite good. So today is Monday. So the last 6 days have been quite good, and I'm looking forward to dropping down to 2 meals a day tomorrow, because I've had enough of eating 3 meals a day, and see how my body goes. And then after that, then you go on to different fasts, and so 1 meal a day and water only initially, just to see how you go and see what your hunger signaling and everything's like. So that's cool. So that's where I'm at with my carnivore diet. I've actually gained a couple of kilos doing the priming, which isn't too bad. I thought it might have been worse. Some people gain lots through priming, 20 pounds or more in a couple of weeks sometimes. But yeah, mine's only been, I put on a couple of kilos and then it came off again. But I think it's gone back on again. I'm not really sure. But according to my scale, so I've got those Tanita scales that show your body fat and your muscle and skeleton and water and everything else, that use the bioimpedance. And according to my scales, it's more muscle that's gone on, which kind of doesn't really surprise me, because I feel stronger. When I'm working, I feel stronger, so I do body work and I'm using my hands and my arms and my upper body lots when I'm working, and I feel like I'm stronger, and I think I've got a bit more muscle up in my deltoids and that, so that's cool. Now, the other thing that has changed, and I think this may have been the cause or something to do with these dizzy spells that I was having, is that my blood pressure, so I've traditionally, for years, as far as I know, always had low blood pressure. I used to have really low blood pressure when I was having a lot of trouble with my thyroid. And then over the last few years since we've been back in New Zealand, my blood pressure kind of came up to normal levels. So it would be sit around 120 over 80, around there, 120 over 70. But then over the last, I want to say, couple of years, it might not be that long, maybe 18 months or so, or 12 months, I'd noticed that my systolic pressure, so the top one, would be sitting around the normal, around the 120, might be 117, might be 125, but the diastolic pressure was becoming consistently low. So it might be 60 or 62. And so at first I didn't think too much about it, and then I started having a little dig into why that happens and what it means. So what it means is, apparently it's really common in older people, and what it means is that the diastolic pressure is the pressure, the blood going into your heart. So the systolic is the pressure coming out of your heart, the diastolic is the pressure pumping back into your heart. And so when that's low, you're not getting enough oxygen and nutrients into the heart muscle. Now that has corrected. In the last couple of weeks in particular, I'm not sure whether it had, I can't remember whether it had before that, I don't think it had, but I'm not really sure. I can't remember when I last took my blood pressure before that, but since I've been eating carnivore, anyway, that has corrected, and my blood pressure is sitting around normal again. I've been testing it kind of daily and to see where it's at, and yeah, that diastolic pressure has come up to a kind of more normal place to be with where my systolic is. So around the 120 over 80, or 17 over 70 something, and my pulse rate is, I don't know, sitting around 70, sometimes 80, which is a little bit high, but just depending on what I've been doing. And so I'm kind of picking that's why I'm not having the dizzy spells. I've got a feeling that had something to do with that. So I am really rapt that that's happened. So I'll keep an eye on that. My blood sugar levels are a lot better after I've eaten. So I can eat and a couple of hours later test my blood sugar and I'm still, about 6.2, something like that. There's no spiking. What else? Mental clarity is pretty damn good most of the time. Brain's working a lot better. I've just done all my book work for the accountant, and I picked up mistakes and things that I made last year, and other bits and pieces that I probably should have looked at and noticed, but I hadn't. And so I don't know where my head was at, kind of when I was, yeah, just obviously, I know that things are working better. My mental clarity is a lot better, and that's really common as well. So, um, aches and pains wise, I have days where I've got no pain, energy's really good. Then I have days where I feel quite jaded, have aches and pains. There's oxalate dumping happening in my body. I'm pretty sure because I can feel like just got random kind of moving pains. And also, I think when you go into carnivore, there's things that are healing. So old injuries might flare up and things like that because your body's doing something with them because it's able to. And so I think that's kind of what's happening as well because hubby's eating mostly carnivore as well, although I make his sourdough spelt bread and he has that at lunchtime still and he's having a bit of fruit as well. But apart from that, he's not eating any veggies, he's just eating the same as I am. And he's got some old injuries, quite a lot of old injuries, but one in particular is in his thumbs where he sprained them years ago in a motorbike accident and he's always had trouble with them. And he was getting a lot of pain in them over the last couple of weeks, but starting to settle now. And I'm picking that his body's doing something to help to heal those up. So we'll see what happens in the future with those. He's put on a little bit of weight with the carnivore side of things as well, which is good. He needed to. And yeah, just feeling stronger. The thing with the priming is the energy. Energy actually goes down mostly with most people with priming, and it's because your body's doing so much and processing so much protein and fat that it takes a lot of energy to digest that. So, so it makes you a bit sleepy. That's been a bit hard, especially with work. So I'm looking forward to cutting it back a bit and seeing what my body does. What else? I think that's about it, really. I'm enjoying the food. That was the other thing I wanted to say is, like when we went shopping this week and we went to the supermarket, there is zero temptation to buy anything else. Zero. Like people say, oh, I miss veggies. Do you miss veggies? It's like I've been a big veggie eater. I mean, I have spent most of my adult life living on vegetables and spinach and almonds and all of this stuff and smoothies and green smoothies and all of these things and taking blinking bottles of supplements and all of this stuff and with health that was still kind of deteriorating. And now, at first, it was a bit of a mind thing. It's like, shouldn't I be eating some veggies? And so I was still having some until I started this challenge. I was still having, a couple of times a week we'd have some cauliflower and bits and pieces. But I'm just now, after these 2 weeks, I don't even have any inclination to have any of that. Some fruit, I kind of like, I wouldn't mind that, but nothing. Like in the supermarket, all of the stuff on the shelves just looked like coloured packaging things. Not interested. The only thing, when I saw the Whittaker's chocolate at the end of the aisle, there was a thought in my mind, but it was only fleeting, and that was it. Wasn't tempted at all. And for me to not be tempted by nuts and peanuts and things like that, that's an absolute miracle. So yeah, so the food freedom part of this is huge. This is part of the reason why people do this as well, is for the food freedom, because if you can get rid of all of those things that you're addicted to, then it allows you to have so much more control over your body and your health and your life. So yeah, for me, so I'm eating dairy at the moment, and cream is something that I kind of have a bit of a thing for, and the kefir. I'm still making the raw milk kefir. And I'm trying to decide whether it's a craving for that or whether it's just a thought of I want it. But I may end up going off those eventually. I'll see how I go with the weight loss, whether I'm getting results I want, whether I still keep feeling like I'm craving those things, or what as time goes on. It's early days, but I think that this carnivore diet might be it for life for me, just from the results and what I'm feeling so far. I think I've been looking for this for my whole life, and I'm pretty impressed with what's happening. I'm impressed with the 90-day challenge and the steak and butter gang as well. If you are doing this, if you're thinking about joining that, do join it, because their support and the is amazing. They have webinars, meetups, MEAT, UPS, 3 of them 3 times a week, I think. Like there's 3 on for me in New Zealand, it works out to be a Saturday and a Monday and a Wednesday, I think. So I think for them, like in the US or Canada, I think it's Friday afternoon, Sunday afternoon, and Tuesday afternoon, I think. And they have really good information, and they answer your questions and help to troubleshoot all sorts of things they talk about. I mean, they've got Coach Stephen, who's into the whole fitness side of things, and then Raymond, who created the feasting and fasting program. When I first saw this was going to say as well, when I first saw how this worked, it made sense, because having done the HCG diet a few times, it's kind of how HCG works, because you prime for 3 days at the beginning of the HCG diet to get lots of fat into your system, so that you can handle the low calories as you go on. And this is kind of what it's like, except you're not calorie counting, you're not doing any of that garbage, but it's feasting, because if you think about the way that our ancestors would have lived when they were out hunting and stuff like that, there would be days where they couldn't eat. So it's kind of eat while the food's there, then be able to handle not eating when it's not there. And that's kind of what this is. And it's about tricking your body and keeping your body guessing. And, because I know that my body's really, really good at adjusting to what I do. It's really efficient. And so, if I stick to the same fasting routine, it'll just adjust. And I have realised that over the years. So I need to keep it kind of guessing. So yeah. So I think that's all I wanted to talk about. My website is suewoolidge.co.nz. So if you want to know more about me and what I do, head on over there. My website's always in the link below. And if you like this video or you want to follow along, please do subscribe, share with anybody you think might be interested, and hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss anything. And I will talk to you again another day. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.